Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we've got another Warstory, Warstory 4, which is Draft Tournament Blues. So, I feel like lately I've been talking about a lot of me winning and stuff like that. And I feel like that I haven't really talked about much in the way of my losses, which I'm sure people might be interested in. So, the reason I haven't really talked much about them is because my losses have been pretty uneventful. For the most part, generally it's like, well, what could I have done better? A, B, C. Done. That's sort of where my losses are. I generally shake hands, I thank them for the game, and I send them on their way. I very rarely lose my temper. And even if I do, I generally do not show it until I'm by myself later. Sometimes I tend to, kick my own ass over certain little minor mistakes that I've made. But at the end of the day with wargaming, sometimes you roll bad dice. That's it, There's not much you can really do for that particular purpose. But there were 3 occasions where I really, really did not like how things panned out. And all 3 of these things were played with the same game, the Star Wars miniature game, which is basically like a sort of D&D 3.5 card game system with miniatures. It's very basic. You roll a d20 and then you just do what it says on the card, for lack of a better description. So, that's pretty much how the game was played. So your card would have like your health, your attack rate, and all that, and then your defense. And your damage, and then it would have like your extra stuff, like if your character maybe had a lightsaber or something like they'd sort of stand out. So based on that, you pretty much used the cards, and then you activated them. And I believe, if I remember correctly, you got 2 activations, and your opponent got 2 activations, and it went backwards and forwards until everyone was out of activations. Obviously, if someone runs out of activations early, you get to activate all the rest of your guys. Anyway, it's a very popular game. I will cover it eventually in a retro review, but until that point, what we're going to talk about here is the draft tournaments that I was a part of. So I entered 3 draft tournaments. Now, I've never been a big fan of draft tournaments because I feel that they don't... I understand the idea behind them, right? It adds a bit of new flavor into the game. I get that, it sort of sucks when someone has an unbeatable deck or an unbeatable army, and no one can touch them because no one's drawn anything that really is as good. And then you just sort of sit there and you go, well, shit, what am I meant to do? So draft tournaments can break that up. It can make it so that you can sort of enjoy yourself. Now, we did have draft tournaments before this, and I'd had, we'll say, middling success in the tournament. So we had one for Pirates, which I did decently well in. We had one for MechWarrior, which I did decently well in. But for the most part, the thing that really upset me was I felt like half of my sort of battle was making an army and then using it. And I felt like draft sort of eliminates that to some degree. You sort of have to use the miniatures you get given and then try and make something out of that. And I never really got great, but Star Wars was another thing. So our first draft tournament rolls around and we get 3 boosters, and I believe at this point, I want to say they just recently released the Old Republic as the sort of booster pack. So you got characters from Knights of the Old Republic. There wasn't many from memory. There was not there's not a crap ton of them, but there was enough that you could sort of get going. Generally, it was big named characters. So you could get like Bastila and stuff like that. I think Darth Malak was possibly one of them. No Revan or no Exile, but they just had the sort of characters that you get in the party and then stuff like that. So anyway, we rolled up. I got an alright army. Like it was nothing to write home about. The problem is that 3 players drew the equivalent of like Darth Maul, Legend of the Sith, or Darth Vader, like Murderer of Jedis, or these guys who would be like Boba Fett, Bounty Hunter Extraordinaire, So what would generally end up happen is that if we had like say a 12-person round robin tournament or something like that, 4 players would get absolute bullshit characters that you could beat if you built armies specifically designed to beat them, which I did have a character killer army, which was really good. I really enjoyed playing that. But you couldn't really functionally beat these guys unless you had a good enough draw, and most 99.9% of the time, these massive characters would just wipe the floor with everyone. So you'd have first the most bullshit character, second the second most bullshit character, third a character that was really strong, and then fourth a character that was slightly less strong than third place. And that was basically how a draft tournament would go in Star Wars. So the first tournament, as I said, I didn't draw overly great. I got absolutely bodied at the table by the 4 guys, and I think I came about 7th overall. I did get some decent Mandalorians, which is the only thing that saved me. So the Old Republic Mandalorians were really freaking good. They were the faction that was introduced in that set, and they were strong. They had a lot of good stuff going for them. In fact, I eventually made an army just of them with Mandalore the Great as their leader, and boy howdy did they hurt people. It was they were a good army, but I just didn't draw enough. I think I got like 3 Mandalorians, and my character my rare character that I managed to draw was the equivalent of like Han Solo, smuggler. So it wasn't that, but it was something the equivalent of that. I think it was like Bastila, who was a decent character, but nothing that's going to win you massive games. And also, just because it was the Old Republic set didn't mean that we didn't have characters from sort of like other stuff. It's just that it was mostly the Old Republic. So you still had like Boba Fett and Jango Fett and General Grievous and stuff like that in the set, but generally in that set, I think it was only like specialized characters. So only the really, really super rare guys would be like, Jango Fett, the final Mandalorian or something like that. That would be their name. And so, yeah, I didn't do great in that tournament. So, but what do you do? I didn't draw well enough. So the second draft tournament came around, and I want to say this may have been the first set that... So basically, booster boxes came in like a regular kind of like square that was about that. And then you had these large character booster boxes that they eventually brought out, which were a bit like that. So you had a box that was like twice the size. But you got large characters like the monsters from the movies or tanks or whatever. So this would have been, I think it was like some type of Clone Wars sort of. I remember the box was a Clone Wars style box, but I think it was called something like, I can't remember. I'd have to look it up, but it was one of the first like really big chunky boxes. So you opened it up, and the cursed rare in this particular box was the Knobbly White Spider. So the Knobbly White Spider was a large vehicle, like a large creature, and it was a rare. So you basically missed out on both another rare and a large creature from the box. And it was crap. Everyone ended up... I think I've got something like 30 Knobbly White Spiders. I'm not even joking. And I didn't buy or get any of them off anyone else. It's just... These things... it was like the common rare. So I crack open my first box at this tournament. So the tournament started, and I draw a Knobbly fucking White Spider, and I'm like, oh, great. And then I open my next box, and I get another goddamn Knobbly White Spider. So I'm already 2 rares down from everyone else. And then I open my third box, and finally I don't get a Knobbly White Spider. I get a Crab Droid for the big guy, which... I mean, it was better than a Knobbly White Spider, and it was an uncommon. But I drew pretty much the equivalent of another sort of like Dash Rendar. Just a named character. Not that Dash Rendar was he wasn't great, but he was decent for his points cost. But so now I'm stuck with this sort of thing where I'm like, oh, at least I can make the 100 points, but I don't have anyone who's really... Ooh. Meanwhile, some guy starts cheering. He's so goddamn happy. He jumps up out of his chair. He's drawn the ultra rare of the set, which was I want to say it was like Darth Maul, like Scion of the Dark Side or something along the lines of that. And this Darth Maul was a beast. He makes movie Darth Maul look like Fisher-Price, My First Darth Maul. He is a monster. So most games are played at 100 points. So you got 100 points to build your army. Generally, you would have to pay more. You could play more, but most people didn't. Darth Maul was 84 points by himself. So this guy paired him up with this, with like a war droid that was worth like about 12 points, and he won the tournament. It wasn't even close. He butchered everyone, and we still had people who drew like, Obi-Wan, Paragon of the Light Side, Anakin Skywalker, Youngling Murderer, that kind of dude. Darth Sidious, like Destroyer of the Light Side. So those guys, of course, ranked 4th, in the top 4. I think I came about 10th out of 12 for that particular tournament, and I'd gotten to the point where I was like, freaking hell, draft tournaments suck. I just didn't seem to get luckier in them. And I have played I've played a draft tournament since these ones, and even then, I still don't like them. I understand why people do enjoy them, but they're just not for me. I prefer to get my stuff, build an army or a deck or whatever you happen to be doing, and just play with that. Right? I understand that. I think draft tournaments are a nice breakup, but we got to the point where at the secondary wargaming club, so the other side, the alternate wargaming club, all they did was start running draft tournaments for every single goddamn game. So I got to the point that I was like, no, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to do draft tournaments anymore. No more Mech Warrior drafts. No more, Magic the Gathering drafts or anything like that. I'm done with drafts. So I know what you're thinking. If you're done with drafts, how is there a third tournament? That is a good question. Basically, what ended up happening is that they only had they wanted to get at least 10 people into this tournament, and they only had 9. The 10th guy dropped out at the last minute and didn't show up. So my dad comes over to me because he was the supplier of all the stuff. He bought it and then he sold it at gaming clubs. So he was the guy who supplied Star Wars for the whole of the wargaming scene. And MechWarrior and Pirates. We've still got some of them, just for the record. Unopened boosters. And so what he ended up doing was he comes over to me and he says, look, mate, can you please play in this tournament? And I'm like, I hate draft tournaments. I have had no luck in draft tournaments. I don't want to do it. So my dad leaves, and then Steve, the guy who runs the Wargaming Club, comes over and goes, Vamps, please, can you please play in this tournament? We really need a 10th player to make it all nice and rounded. And I was like, and he's like, your dad says he'll cover you don't have to pay anything. You just have to play. And I'm like, okay, Steve, fine. So I go over, I get my 3 boxes, and this set was Champions of the Force, and it had some of the most ridiculously overpowered Jedi characters, full stop. The kicker for that set, like the thing that everyone was trying to find was, I think it was Luke Skywalker, Paragon of the Jedi, or something along the lines of that. And he was so expensive that he was 126 points. Yeah, that's right. You couldn't even feel him. So, I enter the tournament, and I rip open my boosters, and they're just regular size, these ones. And I got crap. Just even by that standard. My best hero was, I think it was actually Dash Rendar, actually. I drew 2 of the common hero that no one wanted, which was Wicket the Ewok, who was complete garbage. Even if you made an army based completely around Ewoks, Wicket would still be terrible. He was so bad. So immediately, my rares total a number of points of about 30. if that. If that. So Wicket is like 4 points, 4 or 5 points. I think he's 6 actually. I think Wicket was 6 points. Dash is about 20, so 26 points. So I've made up a fourth of my army in my heroes alone, but I can't use the extra Wicket. Can't reuse unique characters. That's the only rule that the draft had. So Wicket number 2 was discarded. And then I go through and I add up all my other guys, trying to figure out what I should take. And I keep, so I put, Dash and Wicket onto one side, and I take another guy and I look at him and I check out, oh, no, not that guy. And then, so anyway, I'm sorting these out, what I can and can't take. So anyway, after I've done that, I realize that I've only got 60 points total. So I start adding the ones that I've discarded back in. And I keep adding the points up. And I get to the last miniature and I pick him up and I put him in. And I calculate my points and I'm at 98. No, you heard me. Yeah, you heard me. 98 points. That's it. All 3 booster packs, 98 points total. The other Wicket was the only thing that was left out. So I couldn't even hit the 100-point value. So, I'm just oh, this is going to be even worse than every other time I've played in a draft tournament. This is going to be horrendous. Now, you got to remember, I'm 16, 17. So, as a teenager, I'm not quite as effective as hiding my displeasure as I am when I'm an adult. So I don't know what to do. I didn't want to play this tournament anyway, and now I really don't want to play this tournament. So I go over to Steve, and I'm like, "Hey, Steve," and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "I only have 98 points." And he's like, "Oh, that's not a problem. That's fine." Chad, he's only got 98 points. I'm like, "Yes, but Chad drew, that super rare General Grievous. I have 98 points total." And he's like, "Yeah, we'll just shuffle some stuff around." I'm like, no, I don't think you understand, Steve. All 3 of my boxes is 98 points. If I take everything, it's 98 points. And he's like, oh, Jiminy's. And I'm like, yes, Jiminy's would be a good word for it. And I don't know what I want him to do. I guess I was hoping he might go, "Hey, look, here, open another booster box and try and figure something out." But he's just like, "Oh, I guess that's just tough luck, mate." And I mean, what else was he meant to do? I have no problem with his reaction. I mean, anything else would have been cheating. So I had an awful tournament. Absolutely awful. One of the worst tournaments I've ever played in. I did not get a single point. I lost to everyone. My army had no coordination. It had nothing that buffed anyone. They were all terrible. So I just got completely tabled over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It was absolutely humiliating. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to me at the wargaming table. Just constantly getting your teeth kicked in and knowing for a fact that there is literally nothing you could do to prevent it. Let's just say I somehow managed to magically cheat and roll nothing but 20s. I still probably would have lost that game. Maybe I would have got 8th or 7th instead. But even against someone like the General Grievous or the Obi-Wan that was drawn or the Jango Fett, there was nothing I could do. Absolutely zilch. So, if you're wondering what lesson did I learn from this particular scenario, don't play draft tournaments. That's what I took away from it. I'm not against them. If someone offered me to play in one, I might be interested. But, oh boy, during that time period, I was just like, yeah, no, this is the nail in the coffin for draft tournaments for me. But guess what, guys? I'm not going to leave you on that sour note. After the tournament, my dad must have been able to tell that I was quite morose, because it got to the point where I was just like, I ended up, I think I forfeited my last 2 games. One of them was Chad. rocked up at the table. I'm like, I forfeit. And he's like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really sorry, dude. Like, I understand you probably want to like carve me into confetti, but this is everything I got from the booster boxes. Like literally everything. I'm using everything, and I have not even gotten close to a single game of winning. And I'm just not in there. I felt bad, like especially later. I felt bad because I kind of took Chad's like, yeah, I got the cool thing moment, but oh god, I did not want to sit there and watch General Grievous carve my guys into confetti. So anyway, my dad came over and he's like, here, I got you a couple boosters. And I'm like, and so I look at him and my knee-jerk reaction is like, I don't want them. Leave me alone. I don't want anything to do with opening goddamn boosters today. I was done. But I realized that my dad was handing out an olive branch and I grabbed them and I'm like, okay, thanks, Dad. And he's like, cheer up, you might get something good. And I'm like, I doubt it. So I opened the first booster pack and I upended onto the table nearby, because they're all stuck together. And they fall out on the bags. So anyway, I have a quick squiz and I'm like, yeah, it's crap. Except for one little thing. I noticed a red lightsaber. Someone, buried in the middle of the pile, there's someone holding a red lightsaber. And I was like, oh. And I'm like, oh, it must be like a Sith Marauder or something like that, one of the low-level Sith guys. And I'm like, wait, no. They're not in this set. I don't think there are any Sith, like base Sith in this set. So I'm like, oh, maybe I got a Vader or something like that. So I pick up the miniature and I look at it and I'm like, what? I'm like, no fucking way. And I look at it again and I'm like, that can't be right. And I open the packaging because they were all individually packed in the booster. And I'm holding what looks like Darth Revan. I'm not even joking. Legitimately, he looks like Darth Revan. And I'm like, I didn't even know Darth Revan was in this set. So I rip open the packet containing the boosters, the cards, and I pull them out and bang, Darth Revan. The second rarest one in the set. Dude is ridiculously overpowered. He's like 92 points. He's the second most powerful miniature in the Star Wars miniature game. He is a complete fiend. He absolutely rips everything to shreds. He is one of the best lightsaber duelists in the game, but he also has a force ability that anyone within, I think it's 4 spaces of him, takes 30 points of damage for the cost of 2 points of force, and he regens force. So he can basically just walk into a group of people and go, yeah, half you guys are dead. Like, they just die. Just there. So you can't even, like, if you try and fight him in the lightsaber duel, he'll probably win. And if you try to surround him with a whole bunch of guys and hope that you'll just wear him down, he'll kill all of them. He is a complete monster. I was like, oh my god, what? This was such a good cap to the night because it was like... So anyway, I'm so lost in the moment of A, drawing one of my favourite Star Wars characters, and B, him being completely kick-ass. That my dad goes, you haven't opened the other box yet. You haven't opened the other box. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, no worries. So, I open the other box. I'm like, I don't really care what I get in this one. I got Revan. I empty it out. And, I'm expecting a Wicket or something. There's no way in hell I'm getting anything else. It's going to be a Wicket or a Han Solo or something like that, or whatever. And I look in the box and I notice that there's a goddamn green lightsaber sticking out on the side, and I pick it up and it's the Luke Skywalker Paragon of the Force. Yeah, so that as I said, that model's like 124 points. He breaks the regular point value. And so I was like, oh my god! Oh man. If only I'd had these 2 booster packs in the tournament. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to use Luke, right? But I probably would have won with Darth Revan and a Sith War Droid that was in the same box. And that was it. Like, so, I decided to end on a high note on that one. Rather than, because I could have just gone, draft tournaments suck. But the truth is that, sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you don't. And that's really what draft tournaments like doing. And if you're a big fan of draft tournaments, aces, that's great. For me, I think I'm going to stick to regular tournaments and maybe break it up with a draft tournament once every couple of years. It's never going to be a big tick or kicker for me. And that's it. That's Warstory 4. Some upcoming stuff. I've got my first retro review on Pirates coming out. I've got the first episode of For and Against, which I'm not going to super reveal yet. I might pop in on Discord and sort of drop it there. So, if you're looking for sneak peeks and stuff like that, drop into the Discord, which will be in the description. I might get a little link to pop. No, it'll be here. A little link to pop up there, maybe. We'll see how I'm going. And I've also got another Warstory, which is going to be a two-parter. And it's going to be the 5 worst players I've ever played. So we'll cover the first 3 in the first video, which is also going to be a bit of a tribute to a friend of mine as well. And then we'll have the second part of the video, which will be number 2 and number 1. Because really 3 and 1 were the big ones. So, and yeah, that's about it for that one, I think. Also, next major review, we're going to have a look at Grimdark Future. So keep your pants on for that one, or take them off. I mean, you're sitting in your own living room. What do I care what you're wearing? Anyway, guys, you have a good one. Pop into the Discord if you want, and I'll catch you next time. See yous.